the church needs to get its act together and be the forefront of sexual healing and emotional healing for people. I
Amen.
mean, my goodness, we are, God's got the answer. God is the answer. He's the only answer, and we'll talk about this later. He's the answer to feeling hopeless. He's the answer to who you can trust. He's the answer to you feeling so dirty and ugly and crazy and guilty over things that you shouldn't. He's got all those answers to all those emotions that we feel.
Hi, I'm Angela Williams,
And I'm Katie Suganen.
and I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse.
And I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse.
Welcome to Voice Up for the Voiceless. At Voice Up for the Voiceless, we are shedding light on a dark subject of child sexual abuse. And we are giving space to talk about the issue. We are giving space for survivors to share their stories. And we're bringing experts on in the field to really help us understand the issue of child sexual abuse, child sexual exploitation. And we even touch on the horrific subject of satanic ritual abuse. So we're really hopefully making a difference. And we just are thankful that you've tuned in.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. I am super excited. We have Dr. Sam Serio. Is that how you pronounce it? He is from California, and he will be joining us virtually today and hopefully giving us some amazing healing pointers on what he talks about. It's called healing sexual hurt.
And Dr. Sam Serio is a pastor and a counselor and has worked with many to bring healing into their lives. And we're just so grateful that he has taken the time to be on our show today and shed some light on this horrible issue that has hurt so many people. And it's so just we could stop this. It's just breaks my heart that we have to continue to see children being sexually abused, because as our last guest taught us that the statistics are going up and not going down. Right?
Yeah.
We want to welcome Dr. Sam with us today.
Hey there.
Hi, Sam. Do you prefer Dr. Sam or you Pastor Sam?
Dr. Sam is fine.
Okay.
Sam.
Perfect.
Well, tell us a little bit about your work, Dr. Sam.
Many years ago, I was a pro-life speaker, and I would give all these great messages as a younger pastor, including guilt and gore and God, where I would talk about abortion and kind of make ladies feel guilty. That's what most preachers do. Mostly truth, but no grace. So as I was giving all these messages, ladies would come up to me afterwards, sharing with me how bad they felt, that they had done something irreversible. And they started sharing with me, their stories of abortion and the regret. And I was an expert in that topic of abortion. But as I would hear these stories about abortion, all sorts of other stories would come up, like childhood sexual abuse, rape, pornography, sexless marriage, casual sex. I didn't sign up for that. I just signed up for one topic. And here all of a sudden I was hearing stories of all sorts of sadness and secrets that I know the church rarely deals with, or Christians very rarely talk about. So that's how I was kind of thrown into it, and I ended up writing a book. In fact, Angela, just as a reminder, you were one of the reviewers on that book.
No, I read it. I read the review.
And there's one story in the a true story, which really kind of changed my life, which I think you'll resonate with, and so will our listeners. When I was learning more about this particular topic, because I realized if you're going to write about one sexual topic or hurt, you need to be versed in all of them, because they're all interconnected in so many ways, so many secrets. So I went to speak with a lady. This is back in Baltimore. And I was new. And I was interviewing her about her experience of childhood sexual abuse. I was a nervous wreck. So was she. And about 20 minutes into the conversation of hearing her story, she told me that we needed to stop, that she was getting triggered. She was having flashbacks and memories. And she said, if you could leave now, that would be fine. I said, that's okay. I get it. I don't want to, make you uncomfortable. And she said, my psychologist told me to do that. Whenever I'm feeling triggered or flashbacks or memories, I just need to shut it all down. And she said, so, nothing personal, but you need to go. So I did. So as I was leaving, she said to me, well, you know what? I trust you. Come on downstairs. I want to show you something. And I was a little nervous again, thinking, oh my goodness, what's going to happen downstairs now that she feels triggered? So I was a little nervous, but I went downstairs with her, down her basement steps. It was like it was yesterday. And set up with a punching bag, huge punching bag. And she said, I've been told by my psychologist that whenever I feel those flashbacks and those memories, I need to just start punching. And I'll be here for the next hour punching away. And she said, but many times I'm exhausted. And then I'll just kind of fall forward and cling to the bag and say, Daddy, Daddy, why couldn't you love me? Why didn't you love me? She was taught to punch away at that punching bag as a way of healing. And I remember walking up the steps from that basement. This was a long time ago. And I remember saying to the Lord, there's got to be a better way. This is not the way to heal. She's going to go the rest of her life punching the punching bag. And that's when I kind of made a vow with the Lord. Lord, I want to know how to heal in a better way, your way. There's better answers, better solutions to all the horrible triggers and feelings she's feeling now. And that changed my life. And that's really what kind of got me started, along with the talks that I was giving and messages. But her name was Kathy. She's in my book, and I'll never forget it. And she didn't want to become a Christian. Oh my goodness, you got to be kidding. Giving my life to God, trusting Him. What does He want to do with me? Talking to her about a Heavenly Father. Oh no, thank you. I've had enough fathers or father figures in my life. Giving my body as a sacrifice to God? Oh no. So at the time she was living with another lady. She said, I'll never get married. I'll never ever trust a man. So she was taking this. So all sorts of things were, repercussions, but I still remember that day. And that's how I was introduced to the world. And I vowed before the Lord to use God's word as a better way to healing the hurt of childhood sexual abuse.
Oh, that's a wonderful story. Thanks for sharing that. And I apologize, I have not read your book, but I'm going to read your book, especially after meeting you. I have a question. What happened to Kathy? Did she get her healing? What happened to it?
Never wanted to talk again, and but I tried. I tried to help her in a gentle way, but I realized that people who've been hurt and molested and abused and mistreated, they have a whole different way of perceiving the world. She had a whole different way of perceiving me. Even though I was quite trustworthy, I'm still the bad guy. And Christian, I'm a bad guy. God, why did you let this happen? So I realized that, I don't know. I still thought about her many times to this day. But, I've asked God to kind of work in her life in ways that I could not. But she was triggered and never wanted to talk to me again. And that's okay. I get that. I understand that.
Yeah. Tell us a little more about your book.
The church needs to get its act together and be the forefront of sexual healing and emotional healing for people. Amen. I mean, my goodness, God's got the answer. God is the answer. He's the only answer, and we'll talk about this later. He's the answer to feeling hopeless. He's the answer to who you can trust. He's the answer to you feeling so dirty and ugly and crazy and guilty of the things that you shouldn't. He's got all those answers to all those emotions that we feel, all of them. So that's why I wrote the book. I wanted to equip pastors especially, and Christians and counselors, to know how God helps us heal from any hurt or change from any habit as well. I've counseled people who've been on the other side where they did things to children where they shouldn't, but that's another story.
Well, and you don't just talk about one sexual hurt in your book, you talk about 7 different sexual hurt.
Because they're all connected. For example,
Go into that a little bit for us.
Since we're talking on the topic of childhood sexual abuse, and these are stories, true stories throughout the years. One particular lady in one of the youth groups I was working in church, this particular lady was very overprotective of her teenage boys. She always wanted to know where they were going, what they were doing, where we were going to be, She was like overkill, a little much. And I thought to myself, having the experience that I have, that something's up here. And over time, I realized that she had been sexually abused when she was younger. So now she's especially overprotective of her children. Understand? So this repercussion. Another example of a particular lady whose husband was just playing with her and just jumped out around the corner and just surprised her and just kind of grabbed her just to be loving and playful. And she then just froze. She just melted. And for the next few months, she just went into meltdown and didn't want to have sex with her husband or anything. Didn't want him to touch her. And he was like, I'm so sorry. And she had never told anybody, but her uncle had done that one time, a long time ago, that she had suppressed and just brought back those memories. So sexless marriage and sexual assault and casual sex were many times people who've had their bodies used have learned that their body can be quite useful or feel quite dirty, just the opposite. So you can't talk about one, I think, until you know about all of them. So that's why I dealt with sexless marriage, casual sex, LGBTQ. I know one particular lady said, like my friend Kathy, I'll never get married. I never want to be with a man. LGBTQ, sexual assault, casual sex, abortion, pornography. So that's why I wrote the book about all 7 topics. And it is the only book that deals with all 7 topics from a biblical counseling perspective and also from a preaching, churchy perspective. Hey, preacher, here's what you can say on Sunday morning even.
That's what I really liked about your book. It was very practical use for pastors. How has your book been received by the pastoral community?
Well, before it was written, it was rejected a lot of times with the reason that Dr. Sam, you're 20, 25 years ahead of your time. Nobody's going to buy this book. We give up. We're not going to publish it because we're going to lose money on it. You're way ahead of your time. We're still 20 years ahead of our time, even today.
Yeah.
We still are. I don't know if it'll ever. So people who have read it have said this should be mandatory reading in seminaries and Bible colleges and young pastors because they don't know what to say privately or publicly, especially. They won't touch this topic because they're fearful for their job or they're way in over their head, and they are. Mm-hmm. So the people who read it have said that this is they're very complimentary. And but still, the message is hard to get into churches and pastors because most preachers think they're God's gift to the world already. They don't need any help. I hate to say that, but I've been a pastor. So, I was trying to, so now I'm writing another book, like a letter for your life, where I've identified the 12 top emotions that people feel, especially traumatized people feel and sexually. And I'm actually writing it as a first person, like God's letter to you, first person. So it's all gutsy, scared. And but for example, I know you best. I suffered the worst. I'm what you need. I'll help you grieve. I'll help you trust. I'll help you forgive. You're not crazy. You're not dirty. You're not guilty. I will bring justice. I make people new, and I set people free. So those are the 12 chapters that I'm writing more for people so they can have healing. I just, God's word is the thing that heals people. His one word, his one sentence does a lot better than me 1,000 words. And I'm really convinced of that.
Yes.
So it's another book that's more written like person to person, not for pastors, but for people. And I'm really excited about it, actually.
So if you had a message for pastors out there today, being a pastor and having counsel with those that have been wounded, sexually wounded, what would your message be for those pastors?
They're in your pews. They're in your chairs. Please do not be naive and think and be fooled by all the smiling faces on Sunday. There are many ladies in your church who have who have secrets, and people say to me, "Well, no one's ever come to me and told me," or because you never preach about it. Duh. It's like how can you? So I encourage them to be mindful of the harvest that's in their own pews. Like, for example, Mother's Day just happened. So I wrote a post on my LinkedIn page saying, "Hey, preachers, did you happen to say anything at all in your sermon or your service of healing for the mothers who aborted their child and they believed what their parents or their boyfriend said and they now deeply regret it? Did you at all mention, because you could have, it's Mother's Day, you could have done that. Or especially, and some of you, don't have the best relationship with your mom because maybe you told her what your dad was doing or what your uncle did, and she didn't believe you. And she just shut you up, shut you down. And to this day, you're not close to your mom because you still got a lot of bitterness there. It could have been done. Just when you see the harvest, when you see so many people who secretly hurt, you just kind of have a different way of publicly and privately speaking to people.
So what do you think is at the root of the fear? Because I see pastors are really afraid of position. What do you think the root of that fear is?
They're afraid of losing their job. Number one, and unfortunately, but realistically, people come to church to feel good, to escape the world. They do. I don't want to be reminded of all the junk that's out there. This is my place of safety. This is my place of peace. This is where we're safe. This is where we talk about happy things. And church today, I'm old school, but church today is more of like the pastor's a cheerleader. He's a cheerleader. We're going to rump you up and to get you excited and serious stuff, sexual stuff, secrets, sadness, grieving. That's like not in the church vocabulary today, unfortunately. The pastor is meant to be a surgeon, not a cheerleader. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, many have become, duped by wanting everybody to feel good. Well, this is stuff where you don't feel that great. You might need to end the service where people coming forward confessing to what they've done. And while we're on that topic, let's say the pastor does say something about sexual abuse of children or people who have done this or people who have suffered from it. The little old lady sitting next to a man is hearing the preacher talk about this and thinking, is the guy next to me? Am I safe? It's like it just kind of unravels them. So part of it is the pastors and the church's job to say, hey, we're a hospital here. We're not a football team on Sunday morning. We're a hospital, and there's so many people. So the whole purpose of what we do is ministry, not controversy. I'm not here to be controversial. I'm here to minister to people because I've got the answer. We have the answer better than the punching bag.
Yeah. I do feel like there's a lot of that. In fact, it's funny that we're talking about this today because I have a large family and we have been, I call it church dating. So we'll go to a church and kind of feel it out. And actually, I don't go. I send my husband first. I'm like, hey, tell me how it is. And if you feel good, then I'll go. But it's true. A lot of the churches I went to, it's like what you say. It's a rah-rah session. And while that's good and I feel good, but you're right. It's like I need to get the meat and potatoes. I need to know how God is speaking to me and how I can move forward in my healing. Not that they talked about it, but I'm happy to say we did find a church that I get more of that. And I believe our pastors have had issues with that. They've written books and they do hand out their story. So I'm not there long enough to know how far into details they speak on it in Sunday service. But that's interesting. Now that I've spoken to you, I'm going to be more aware and maybe offer some
Power Sam.
Yeah, definitely.
And to me, it's just a matter of having truth and grace. Pastors are big on truth, where this is wrong, like pornography, one of the topics. All the messages are, don't do it, look what it does, instead of like just pausing in the midst of your message saying, and I know that, ladies, some of you have been hurt by your husband who's doing this secretly, or some of you men are struggling with this. Just to change your tone and to speak words of grace in the midst of truth, not one or the other, but one and the other. So when it comes to this particular topic, that whenever you got to always have that mentality of truth and grace. So now I will never, ever talk about any of these sexual hurts or habits without knowing that there are people listening who have been there, done this. So don't just do the truth thing and make yourself look good and talk about how terrible it is. You better assume that there are people in the pews who are now suffering from this. Are you going to say something, Sam, where they're going to say to themselves, I could talk to him afterwards. He would understand. He gets it. Oh my, I'm going to bring my friends here. Look, wow. So unfortunately, church is typically a place where, and I asked these ladies when they would tell me stories of being molested and abortion and sexless marriage and rape and all these, I would ask all of them, hey, have you ever told your pastor or your priest about this? And every single time they would say, you've got to be absolutely crazy. I would never in a million years talk to my pastor or priest about these things. The way they preach, I don't want to be yelled at again. So that's why I wrote the book and the website healingsexualhurt.com, to just help the church to regain its rightful. God talks about childhood sexual abuse. He talks about sexless marriage. He talks about rape. He talks about LGBTQ. He talks about all of these topics. So why shouldn't we?
Well, if we could begin to talk about it, we could just open a space up for people to heal sooner, how earlier. You touched on pornography. Many that are addicted to pornography were introduced to it as children. So it was part of their sexual abuse to kind of indoctrinate them. So we're so grateful for the work that you're doing, and we're so grateful for your book. What would be your message to survivors after having done this work for now, 20 years? What would be your message?
That the things you need the most in terms of feeling better about yourself because some things were done to you that should never have been done, that God is not like other people, that God is good and kind and he can be trusted. He might be the only person. I know you have a hard time with trust. I don't blame you, but God can be trusted. Maybe you view yourself as dirty or guilty, or feeling guilty over things you shouldn't feel guilty because your abuser said it was your fault. That's what they told my friend Kathy that we talked about at the beginning. She did go to her dad. She did. She finally got the nerve up to go to her dad, and her dad said, well, what do you mean? You wanted it. This was your fault. And they just sent her back. So God is the answer to false guilt. God is the answer when you feel so dirty or crazy or guilty. God is the answer to who you can trust. God is the answer to there be justice. Because for many people, they're not going to have justice on this side of eternity. But just knowing in your soul that God does bring justice and he sets people free. He can set you free from the bitterness. He can help you to start trusting and regain your dignity and your sanity. He's the answer to all the emotions that you need. He's what you need. He helps you grieve. over these things. He doesn't put you down for it. So everything we need, he's got it. It's not found in a punching bag.
Amen. I know he's done a miraculous work in my life and in my healing of my sexual abuse.
Yes, same with me. I don't harbor any bitterness or resentment, and I that did not come from me. It came from God for sure.
Well, he gives us the power that we don't have in ourselves. And especially for those feeling who were abused and molested, you learn to not have any control over the situation. You kind of grow up feeling helpless because you were helpless. So just know that God gives you a new spirit where he regains your confidence. He brings back sanity and dignity back to you. So again, he's the best solution. He's not the last choice. He's the first choice.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, what emotions do you see most with survivors of childhood sexual abuse, and most importantly, how does God heal these specific emotions?
Probably the emotion I see the most, and you understand, is just anger and and not forgiving. And I understand it takes time. It would be foolish for someone to say, "Well, you just need to forgive the person who did that." You don't demand forgiveness instantly when someone comes to you with that story. So, just the idea that here, the bitterness and the anger, and it spills over. I've counseled people where one particular, a lady and a man, they kept on getting fired. Now, you would never think that. They kept on getting fired from their job. And they thought it was the job. And the reason ultimately was that the man or lady would remind them of the dad who was dictatorial or the mom who was somewhat passive. And every time they would meet somebody who's a little, stronger personality, it would remind them of their dad who did such things. Or they meet someone who's more passive and kind of more submissive, it would bring back. So there's a lot of flashbacks and triggers and memories that just come out of nowhere. And just having that mindset of knowing that, wow, this maybe, this is related to that. This is related to. So I just see a lot of anger and bitterness and flashbacks, feelings of there's something's wrong with them.
Most survivors.
Pardon me?
I was just going to speak to the survivors that are listening that there is nothing wrong with you and that there is healing. Hopefully Cody and I can be an inspiration to you to let you know that it's a journey, but taking that first step to healing is so important because you deserve to live a life full of joy and not in that shame and in that anger and in that place. And I know early in my life, I used the filter of abuse in a lot of relationships and in work. So it does spill over if you don't cover to a place of healing.
Yeah.
This lady is being super protective of her children because of something that happened. So, if people are listening who do this, they've gotten away with it. You've gotten away. You have any idea how much you hurt somebody by what you do? Do you have any clue of how you can mess up someone for the rest of their life and their relationships with their own children? Their own children suffer because of what you did for your few minutes of so-called joy because you were watching porn. That truth and grace thing I always try to have. But, do you have any idea of the damage you cause by being selfish? And I'm sorry. People say it's self-esteem or this or that. It's selfish. And God is the answer to get rid of selfishness.
It's selfish and it's sin and it's evil. Well, Dr. Sam, we're so grateful that you took the time to be on with us today. We end every show with a voice of inspiration for our viewers. So do you have some words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
There's a verse in the Bible in 1 Peter, give all your anxiety and care for him because he cares for you. And, God knows, God's the only one besides you. And he even knows more than you about what happened to you. And he knows you best. He knows what happened. He knows what happened in darkness. There's no darkness to him. He knew it. He You're there and you're here now. So that your deepest pain, your biggest sorrow, the thing that nobody knows about you, few people, talk to God about it, because God already knows about it. And just grieving sometimes, giving that pain and hurt to God is when you start healing. Just knowing that, wow, Lord, you and me, we'll figure this out together. Help me to heal, because I can't do it on my own. I'm tired of punching bags.
Well, I just want to encourage you to continue the great work that you're doing, because our churches need to open their eyes and they need to get your book, Healing Sexual Hurt. And if there are any pastors listening, yes, and we're going to have it in the link below, and we'll also have a picture of it during this broadcast. But we're just grateful to you. We're grateful for your heart and to help break the silence, help us break the silence. So we just want to thank you for being with us today. And
let us know when your new book comes out.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have you back on and talk about it. It sounds really interesting. So, all right, thank you. We just want to thank Mesmerize Media for making this podcast possible. And we want to thank you, our viewers. We're so excited that our subscribership is growing, and that please share. This is a message that needs to be shared and needs to be talked about. And so we just hope that if you're hurting today, that you will reach out to us, you can comment, get help. Just take that step, please. We have resources that we can help you.
Yeah, just look in the description. I have all the links on all of our videos. But make sure to please like, share, subscribe, hit the little bell button if you're watching us on YouTube. That way, every time we have a new video, you'll get notified. And as I always say, we actually answer each and every single comment. And if we don't know something, we'll find it out for you.
Well, I'm Angela Williams, and we just thank you for watching.
Thank you, and I'm Katie Savano, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.